Hello and welcome to today's session on learning about FlexFields in SmartField. Let's first talk about what FlexFields are and how we use them in the system, and then we'll go and demonstrate a fictitious job in the system to see how we actually put them to use. So FlexFields can be used for a variety of things. They're really SmartFields' way of modifying the system to put whatever values and data that you would like in any sense in the control tower view in the general application, and also modifying the mobile application, which can be extremely powerful. It means that by modifying the mobile application with fields that are customized, not only for the company but for each job that you're on, each job can have its own set of custom fields that are collected in the field based on the type of job that we're sending people out for. So FlexFields can pertain to work packages or jobs. They can be added to customers so that we can track special customer items. And then FlexFields can also be tracked and added from a user perspective. So like for technicians, we can track special things about those technicians, skills, and other things. And then you'll also notice that throughout the system, you can add FlexFields for other places in the system. The hierarchy works as follows. So we'll focus on jobs for today. Work packages is what we call jobs in the system. The work packages drive what FlexFields will show up in the control tower in the application. They'll also drive what shows up in the mobile. Those custom questions that we add into the system can be related to all jobs, and then they can be related to some jobs. And the example we're going to do today, we're going to show how we can add some custom fields that we want to show up on every single job that's out in the field. Because let's say we have some marketing questions that we always want to ask, but then there's some specific ones that we don't want to ask unless we're on a specific type of job, and that's possible as well too. So essentially you get the best of both worlds. You get the ability to add those custom fields to all of those jobs as well as just some of those jobs and have everything show up. Because they're driven at the work package level, regardless of the type of job you're working on or the work types, it has no relevance into what FlexFields show up. It's always driven by the work package. So what we want to do is keep in mind that whenever we want some specific questions that show up on a specific work package, we always want to make sure that we're driving them off the work packages and give a lot of thought into how we set the system up ahead of time. So without any further ado, let's use an example that we came up with here. Corporates asked us on this story to ask some marketing questions out in the field. And so we're going to go ahead and add those questions today to every single job that happens out there. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to come over into admin on the right hand side here, and we're going to scroll down all the way down to where it says FlexFields. We're going to select FlexFields, and you'll see that there's a big white screen with a lot of information that we can fill in. I mentioned that we're doing this off of a job, so there's many choices that we have here for FlexFields. We can add them to customers, as I mentioned in the slide, materials, hours, equipment, customers, users. In this case, because it's a job, we're going to do it off of the work package. You'll notice that there's a huge list of existing questions that I've already got down here on the bottom. These can be sorted. These can be sorted in any order, and this kind of shows us what we have already in place. We're going to do this specifically on a work package called field install, and if I sort on this limit to and show you kind of field install and scroll down, you'll notice I've got some questions here already. So whenever there's a field install, it will ask the tech about their terminations, it'll ask the tech about their MAC ID, it's going to ask the tech about the IP address, and it's also going to ask the tech about the cable length. You'll also note that the Flex group, which is the page in which these questions show up on, are in the global page, which means they show up on basically the general page. Today we're going to do something very specific because we're going to ask a marketing question. We're going to specifically add a marketing question page to this FlexField lesson, and we're going to be able to then add those marketing questions to it. So essentially, if you see something here where it says global, that means every single work package that is a field install will have the following questions on the front page because this is the global set of questions. Because we want to have a separate page for the marketing questions, we're going to add a flex group called marketing, and that'll create a separate page on the mobile to give us those questions. So that's where we'll head next. So over here on admin, let's go to flex group real quick here. We're going to add one called marketing. All this does really is create a page on the mobile phone. And in fact, flex groups could just as well as be called flex pages, because that creates a page on the mobile phone. We're going to call it marketing. And now we come back over here to our flex fields. We're going to go ahead and set up a new one with some marketing questions in it. All right, so I'll come back down here and we're going to say our flex fields. And I'll come to work package. And we're going to limit this one to, if you remember, we said field install. So whenever we're doing a field install, we want to ask the following questions. And remember, we also added a new flex group called marketing. So I'm going to come down here. So on the marketing page, whenever we go out and do this job, we want to ask the following question, which is your previous supplier is what our corporate office would like to know. And we can have a short and a long question. So the label becomes the data place where the information is stored. And we'll say, who was your previous supplier? Okay, so whenever a job goes out and somebody's doing a field install, that question's always going to show up. We'll leave the default value blank. We'll also leave the data type blank, but notice that it can be an alphanumeric data type, it can be numeric, it can be a date, or it can be Boolean. If it's a numeric type, that just helps us from a database perspective understand the data, so later on if we want to do math on that, we can do some math on that. If it's a date, the little prompt's going to show up on the mobile that has the little iPhone date functionality as well as the Samsung date functionality, so whatever phone that's on, that's going to show up. And if it's Boolean, it's going to be a checkbox. So super amount of flexibility there into what you can do with those fields. Display rows give us the ability to offer a larger box on the phone. So if we leave that blank, it's going to be one single line, kind of like what we're looking at right now, which is one horizontal line. If you exceed more than one, so if I enter 2 or 3 or 4, it's going to give multiple lines on that phone, essentially creating a box, and give the user the ability to pull down that box from an ellipsis that'll hang off to the right hand side here. So if we need a big space for people to put information in, then we're going to add more rows to the size of that box. Because we're putting in a single line here, I'm going to leave that blank. Display order is really powerful because display order tells us, hey, I understand you have a bunch of questions down here that you're already asking. That's great. Let's say I want my question here to show up before or after another question that already exists. So I can randomly put a number in here, and that number for the order will show up before or after some other numbers that I put in. So I've got 100 for cable length, we've got 200 for MAC ID, and if I wanted marketing to show up after that termination question, I would simply put 300, let's say, hypothetically. So any value will work as long as it's greater or smaller, depending on where you want the order of it, after the previous values there. So I'm going to go ahead and say, hey, I want this to be my 300 order question, okay, because I want it to show up after the other stuff. And since it's the only one that's going to be on that page, the numbering system is going to start all over again. So I'll go ahead and click Save on Field Install. And now we should have a question called Previous Supplier, which we'll have down here, alphabetical. And there it is, Previous Supplier, awesome, with the 300 value. And there's one other question that they would like us to ask in marketing. So I'm going to go ahead and clear this out. And let's put this new question in, work package. Once again, we're going to limit it to the field install or work package because that's the only time we ever want to ask this. We also want to put it on the marketing page. So I'm going to scroll down here to marketing. The other question they want us to ask is how satisfied you are. So I'm going to put satisfaction here. So how satisfied were you with today's installation? I'll go ahead and leave the default value blank. We'll leave the data type blank, and then the display row, same thing here. Because we want it after the initial question, we're going to say 400, because remember we put 300 for our last one, so I'm going to put 400 in the display order here, 400, and I'm going to click on save. Now let's do something interesting on this one because it is could be a multiple choice question. We're going to go ahead and say for satisfaction. We'll scroll down to the satisfaction field, the one that we just added in here. Click on that. And then let's say that we're going to use multiple choice. So in this case, we're going to use our flex types here, which gives us the ability to do multiple choice off of that value. So we'll say use flex types. We'll click save. And you'll notice something that's going to happen that's interesting. When I come back down here and click satisfaction again, the little green light pops up here for flex types. So now we can add different values in, like not very satisfied. That could be one. I'll click save up on the top, click add, and I'll say very satisfied. Click save. And let's add one more, extremely. Alright, so basically we have three different types of results that can happen based on the satisfaction level of that customer. Not very, very, and extremely satisfied. Simply doing this, the power that just happened just now is going to connect all of these questions now instantaneously to any new job that comes out of the system, to the mobile, and also to the dispatch and scheduling. So essentially, the questions that we ask and the information that we gather in the field can be changed all the time to kind of accommodate new marketing programs, new sales programs, new field programs that exist where we want to collect important data but don't want to spend a ton of time customizing a mobile application. This is a 5-minute or less exercise in making that happen. So let's go see the results of the work that we did and see how that really shows up